The moment I stepped into the small, brightly lit dressing room, the world outside seemed to disappear. The click of the door behind me sounded impossibly loud, a sudden punctuation that separated me from everything familiar, from everyone who knew me as him. The air smelled faintly of detergent and fabric softener, and the faint hum of fluorescent lights made my heartbeat seem deafening. I clutched the plastic hanger in my trembling hands as if it were a lifeline, a bridge between the person I was expected to be and the person I had always felt myself to be, deep down in the quietest corners of my mind. I set the skirt on the counter and stared at it, trying to convince myself that this was just an experiment, a harmless curiosity. But my reflection in the small, full-length mirror told a different story. I could see the tension in my shoulders, the tightness in my jaw, the way my fingers shook when I reached for the fabric. Every line, every shadow on my face seemed magnified, as though the mirror itself were amplifying the truth I had spent so long hiding. I tried to breathe, slow and steady, but my chest felt like it had shrunk, compressed by the weight of anticipation, fear, and something far more potent, longing. Slowly, almost ritualistically, I lifted the skirt, feeling its texture under my fingertips. It was softer than I had imagined, lighter than any piece of clothing I had worn as him. There was a delicate curve to its waistline that made me shiver, a small thrill running up my spine that I couldn't deny. I slipped it over my hips, pulling it carefully into place, and as I did, I felt a strange, almost sacred sense of transformation. The mirror reflected me again, and this time I didn't recognize the boy I had always known. I saw instead a fragile, tentative version of her, trembling on the edge of revelation, and the sight made my chest tighten with something I couldn't name. My hands roamed over the fabric almost unconsciously, smoothing out wrinkles, adjusting folds, testing how it swayed when I moved. I twisted on my toes, the skirt fluttering around my legs, and caught a glimpse of my own eyes, wide, uncertain, and shining with unshed tears. There was a part of me that felt ashamed, that wanted to flee, but another part, the deeper part, the part that had been whispering to me in secret for years, was exhilarated, alive in a way I had never known. Every motion, every glance at my reflection, was a secret rebellion against the person I had been told to be. I lingered there, lost in the mirror, imagining the world through her eyes. I imagined walking down the street, hair softly brushing my shoulders, the skirt swaying just so, and people looking at me and seeing me as she, not him. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, equal parts terrifying and intoxicating. My mind wandered, recalling nights spent secretly sketching outfits, experimenting with makeup in the dim light of my bedroom, trying to catch a glimpse of the person I felt inside. Those nights had been private sanctuaries, small pockets of truth I dared not speak aloud. But here, in the dressing room, surrounded by cold tiles and harsh lighting, that private world suddenly felt within reach. Then, without warning, the sound came, a shuffle of feet on tile, a door clicking somewhere nearby, and I froze. My hands stiffened on the waistband of the skirt, and my heart lurched. Panic spread through me like wildfire, hot and paralyzing. I wasn't prepared for anyone to witness this, not now, not like this, and yet the sound drew closer, a terrifying prelude to confrontation. What are you doing?" The voice cut through the air like glass. I turned slowly, my stomach knotting, and there she was, my mother. The lines of her face were sharper in this light, her eyes wide with shock, disbelief, something almost like fear, and something I couldn't quite place, curiosity, recognition. She didn't move immediately, her posture rigid, arms crossed instinctively as if she were bracing herself for an explanation she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. I opened my mouth to speak, to explain, to justify, but the words wouldn't come. My voice was small, fragile, breaking under the weight of exposure. I wanted to try. The sentence fell apart in the air, incomplete, leaving me suspended in the tension between confession and retreat. Her gaze swept over me, taking in the skirt, the trembling hands, the uncertain stance. I felt stripped bare under those eyes, every secret I had kept, every hidden dream, every stolen moment of private transformation, suddenly exposed. The mirror no longer reflected just my image. It reflected the entirety of my secret life, a collage of fear, desire, shame, and hope, and I felt painfully aware of how little she knew, how little anyone knew about this part of me. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Her silence was heavier than any scolding, heavier than any reprimand I could have imagined. I thought she might turn away, might retreat and leave me alone with my humiliation. But instead, she stepped closer, slowly, cautiously, as if testing the waters of an entirely new reality. The closeness made my knees weak, my hands tightening instinctively on the skirt as if it could anchor me against the surge of emotion flooding through me. You're wearing that?" Her voice was barely above a whisper now, tinged with uncertainty, shock still lingering, but softened by something else I couldn't name. The question wasn't accusatory, it was almost fragile, like a bird testing the wind with its wings. I nodded, unable to look her in the eye. I just wanted to see. I didn't mean to." The words fell into silence again, unformed, inadequate, but honest. And as I stood there, trembling in borrowed clothing, I realized that this was more than just trying on a dress. This was a confrontation with my own truth, a moment where the person I had always been inside could no longer be hidden. She didn't move for a long time, and I watched her face, searching for a reaction, any clue that she understood. There was a flicker, so brief I almost missed it. But there, in the quiet depths of her eyes, was a question, a hesitation, maybe even recognition. It didn't erase the fear, the potential for rejection, but it offered a sliver of hope, a fragile bridge between the world I had known and the world I longed to inhabit. In that suspended, fragile moment, I realized that transformation wasn't just about clothes, about makeup, about appearances. It was about being seen, fully and honestly, by someone whose understanding I feared I might never have. And in her presence, I felt both exposed and alive, terrified and exhilarated, as if standing at the edge of a cliff and finally finding the courage to look down. The silence stretched longer than I could bear. Each second felt suspended in time, a taut line pulled tight between us. I wanted to shrink into the floor, to curl into myself and disappear, but something in her posture, hesitant, careful, almost cautious, kept me rooted. She wasn't stepping back. She wasn't recoiling. She wasn't angry, at least not visibly. Instead, her arms hung loosely now, the tightness easing slightly, and her eyes flicked over me with a strange intensity, as though she were examining a painting she didn't understand but didn't want to destroy. I wanted to speak, to fill the silence with words that might explain everything, but my tongue was leaden, clumsy, refusing to cooperate. My voice broke, caught between confession and fear. What I had rehearsed so many times in the quiet of my room evaporated entirely, leaving only raw, unfiltered truth. The fear, the longing, the ache of years spent hiding in shadows, the desperate need to be recognized. She shifted slightly, the movement small but deliberate. "You've been hiding this." Her voice was quieter now, tinged with disbelief and something else, curiosity, maybe even a flicker of understanding. I swallowed hard. My throat was dry, but I nodded. I didn't know how to be seen like this." The words were clumsy, but honest, spilling out like water from a dam. Her eyes softened slightly, just enough that I felt my chest loosen by a fraction. She didn't reach out, didn't touch me, and yet there was a hesitancy in her stance that suggested she was weighing every thought before acting. I could feel the weight of her gaze on me, and paradoxically it was comforting and terrifying all at once. Comforting because it meant she was present, still here, still willing to watch. Terrifying because it meant that this moment, this exposure, was real and irreversible. I stepped closer to the mirror, almost unconsciously, as if the reflection could anchor me. I adjusted the skirt again, feeling the soft fabric slide under my fingers, noticing the way it hung from my hips, the subtle sway as I shifted my weight from one foot to the other. Every movement was amplified in my mind. Every glance at the reflection was a question. Could she see me? Could anyone ever see me? My heart thrummed violently, each beat a reminder of the vulnerability I had placed myself in, each breath a silent plea for understanding. You look different," she said finally, and I could hear the hesitation in her voice, the struggle to find the right words. Different. The word was gentle, almost neutral, but it carried a weight. Different from what she expected, different from the version of me she had known. And yet, in that simple observation, I sensed a bridge forming between us. She noticed, she acknowledged, she was beginning to see. I exhaled shakily, trying to gather myself, to find words that could express the torrent of emotions inside me. I'm not just trying on clothes," I whispered, barely audible, as if confessing it might make it vanish. I've always felt like this, like her, inside. The words hit the air like stones in water, and I held my breath, waiting for the ripple, for the reaction that could shatter everything or begin to mend the distance between us. Her eyes softened further. She took a tentative step closer, careful not to startle me. "Inside, you've always felt like this?" she asked, voice low, almost reverent. I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. "Yes, for as long as I can remember. Every night, every moment alone, every mirror I avoided, she was there. And I just didn't know how to show her, not even to you, not until now." The truth of it hung between us, heavy and fragile. I felt exposed, every hidden thought and feeling laid bare, yet a strange relief coursed through me. For the first time, someone knew, someone might understand, someone was looking beyond the surface to the person I had always been beneath. She didn't reach out immediately. Instead, she studied me, her gaze scanning the lines of my shoulders, the tilt of my head, the way the skirt moved as I shifted. And I realized that she wasn't judging, at least, not harshly. She was trying to see me as I saw myself, attempting to navigate the unfamiliar territory I had occupied for so long in secret. I stepped a little closer to her, unsure, trembling. I wanted to see what it felt like, I admitted, voice small, to be her, even for a moment, to see if anyone could see me that way, and maybe to see if I could see myself that way. My hands fumbled with the hem of the skirt, twisting and smoothing it, as though the motion could ground me. Her lips parted slightly, a breathless pause that stretched into eternity. Then she spoke again, gently, almost cautiously. "And do you feel like yourself when you wear it?" I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks despite my best effort to hold them back. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I do. For the first time, maybe ever. I feel right, whole, like the person I've always wanted to be." My voice cracked, but the words were true, and the vulnerability of speaking them made me feel more alive than I ever had in my entire life. She didn't immediately respond. Instead, she reached slowly, almost hesitantly, and brushed a strand of hair from my face. Her touch was light, almost imperceptible, but it was enough to make my knees weaken slightly, enough to anchor me in the moment, enough to tell me that she wasn't turning away. She wasn't rejecting me. She was here, present, witnessing, and perhaps, in her own cautious way, beginning to understand. I swallowed, trying to steady my voice, my hands, my entire being. I know this is a lot," I said softly. "I know it's surprising. I didn't mean for you to find me like this. I needed to be seen. And now that you are, I don't know how to act, what to say, or..." She shook her head, a small, slow movement. "No," she interrupted gently. "You don't have to say anything. You don't have to explain everything. I'm just looking. I'm seeing you. That's enough for now." The words struck me like a balm, soothing the raw edges of fear, washing over the tremor in my body, calming the storm of panic that had been building inside me. For the first time, I realized that being seen didn't necessarily mean being judged. Being visible didn't mean being condemned. And for the first time, maybe, I could begin to imagine a path toward acceptance, not just from others, but from myself. I took a shaky breath, glancing at the mirror again. The reflection staring back at me was no longer just a stranger. She was me, fragile and tentative, trembling yet undeniably alive. And now, standing next to her, my mother, witnessing, hesitating, yet present, I felt a small flicker of hope. Perhaps the bridge between hidden desire and open existence could be crossed. Perhaps this moment, delicate as it was, could mark the first step toward recognition, understanding, and a life where I no longer needed to hide. And yet, even as relief and hope bloomed in my chest, a small, persistent fear remained. The world outside this dressing room had not changed. The expectations, the judgments, the familiar voices that would call me by the wrong name, insist I conform, those were still waiting. But for now, in this small room, under the harsh fluorescent lights, I allowed myself to simply exist, to simply be seen, to simply breathe. And for the first time, it felt possible that I might survive this, that I might step into the person I had always been meant to become. The quiet in the dressing room stretched on, heavy and thick, pressing against me in a way that made it impossible to move without feeling every heartbeat reverberate through my chest. The fluorescent lights above were harsh and unwavering, casting sharp reflections on the mirror in front of me, and making every detail of my trembling body almost unbearably clear. I adjusted the skirt again, fingers smoothing the delicate fabric against my hips, and the soft brush of material along my thighs sent a shiver up my spine. I felt raw, exposed, every muscle taut with a strange cocktail of fear, excitement, and longing. I could feel her presence behind me, my mother's gaze lingering, soft but unyielding, searching, attempting to measure the depths of a truth she had never encountered before. The air between us felt suspended, almost vibrating, as though the world had condensed into this small room, into these fragile, trembling moments. I wanted to speak, to explain everything that had never been said, all the secret nights spent experimenting with clothing, makeup, and the reflection of a self I had never been allowed to show. But my tongue felt heavy, betraying me, my carefully rehearsed words dissolving into the tension of the silence. I raised my hands slightly, brushing them along the folds of the skirt, noticing the way it moved with the slightest shift of my weight. I swiveled slowly on my toes, letting the fabric catch the light, imagining how it would fall if I were to walk down the street. My chest tightened. I realized that the sensation, the simple act of the skirt moving over my body, was more than just physical. It was a declaration, a whispered confession to the world. This is who I am, even if I have never dared say it aloud. Her voice broke the silence, hesitant and quiet. "Does it feel right?" I blinked rapidly, tears threatening to spill, and nodded. "Yes," I whispered. "It feels like me, like who I've always been inside. Every night, every time I looked in the mirror and didn't see myself, I've wanted this. I've wanted to be her." My voice cracked under the weight of truth, but the words felt alive, solid in a way that everything I had said before had never been. She moved slightly, almost imperceptibly, but the motion sent a jolt through me. Her arms were still crossed at first, but then she relaxed, just enough for me to sense that she wasn't angry, that she wasn't recoiling. Instead, she was watching, absorbing, trying to understand a reality that had always existed in secret. My pulse thrummed violently, each beat a drum of vulnerability and hope, and I felt simultaneously small and immense, as if every hidden piece of myself was finally being noticed. I thought back to the countless nights I had spent alone, the soft hum of my bedroom lamp casting shadows on the walls, fingers tracing patterns on fabric I would never wear outside, makeup brushes in hand, imagining her, the girl I had always been, walking freely, being seen, being acknowledged. Those nights had been my refuge, my sanctuary, my only moments of truth. And yet they had been lonely, filled with longing and quiet ache. Now, standing here, skirt around my hips, my mother watching, those private hours felt like the prelude to a revelation I had been waiting for my entire life. I didn't know how to show you this before," I admitted softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know how to be visible, not like this. I've always been afraid of what you'd think, afraid of what everyone else would think, afraid that if anyone saw me, really saw me, I would disappear." Her eyes softened further. She didn't interrupt, didn't dismiss my fear, and in that absence of judgment, I felt a strange comfort. She was letting me exist in this moment, letting me reveal myself at my own pace, letting me show her the parts of me I had hidden for so long. I swallowed, blinking back tears, and tried to steady my trembling hands on the skirt, feeling the soft fabric anchor me to reality. "You don't have to explain everything," she said finally, her voice tentative, careful. I just need to see you, to understand. I may not get it all yet, but I can see you, and that's enough for now." The words struck me profoundly. Enough. Not acceptance, not full understanding, not praise or approval, just enough to breathe, to exist, to be witnessed without immediate judgment. For the first time, the years of hidden longing, the ache of secrecy, the constant pressure to conform, felt like they might ease, even slightly. I let myself breathe, slow and deliberate, as though the act itself could cement my existence into something tangible, undeniable. I turned slightly to face her, my reflection in the mirror now showing the two of us, bound together in this fragile space of tension and tentative recognition. The skirt swayed lightly as I shifted my weight, catching the light in folds that seemed to echo the movement of my pulse, the rise and fall of my chest, the tremor in my fingers. I realized, almost painfully, how much of myself I had kept locked away, and how exhilarating it felt to finally allow even one person, someone I loved, to witness her. Her gaze flicked over me, noting the delicate tilt of my head, the subtle curve of my shoulders, the way I fidgeted with the skirt. I sensed the hesitation in her movements, the unspoken questions forming behind her eyes. She didn't rush to embrace, didn't step forward to touch or scold, but her presence was grounding, a quiet reassurance that I could exist here without fear of immediate rejection. I remembered the nights I had spent in front of the mirror, practicing subtle movements, testing expressions, imagining conversations I could never have, rehearsing smiles that never reached anyone's eyes. All of that training, all of that rehearsal, had led me here. A real, tangible moment where my reflection, my body, my truth, and someone else's acknowledgement could converge. I let my fingers trace the skirt again, smoothing the fabric as if the motion could solidify this fragile moment into permanence. I think I've always been her, I said, voice trembling. Even when I couldn't say it, even when I tried to hide her, I am her. And I want to be her truly, fully, and maybe someday, not just in secret. Her lips parted slightly, and her gaze softened to something I could almost call understanding, though it was tentative, careful. Then I see her, she said quietly, deliberately. I see you, and that's important. The words felt like a balm, washing over the raw edges of fear and self-doubt. I blinked back tears, feeling my chest unclench fractionally, my trembling hands settle on the skirt, my pulse slow but insistent. For the first time, I felt a sense of possibility, a fragile hope that the hidden parts of myself, the girl I had always carried in secret, could begin to breathe openly, could exist fully, and could perhaps even be recognized outside the mirror. Even as relief coursed through me, fear lingered, gnawing at the edges of my consciousness. The world outside this dressing room, with its expectations and judgments, had not changed. The voices that demanded conformity, that insisted I shrink, that whispered that I was wrong, those voices still waited. And yet, standing here, skirt around my hips, her witnessing gaze soft and steady, I felt the first spark of courage. The first glimmer that maybe, just maybe, I could navigate the world as she, not as the boy everyone thought I was. I inhaled slowly, savoring the brush of fabric, the warmth of her presence, the quiet tension in the room, and I allowed myself to exist fully, completely, even as fear lingered. And in that quiet, suspended moment, I realized, being seen even partially, tentatively, with hesitation, was a revolution. It was the first step toward reclaiming the parts of me I had hidden, toward stepping into the person I had always been, and toward imagining a future where I could be visible, alive, and unapologetically herself. The room felt impossibly small, yet somehow infinite. The soft, fluorescent hum overhead became a soundtrack to my heartbeat, pounding so loudly I was certain she could hear it too. I stood in front of the mirror again, hands lightly brushing the skirt, almost mesmerized by how it moved with every shift of my weight. I could feel the subtle tug of the fabric against my hips, the soft warmth of my skin beneath it, and each movement felt like a declaration of something I had been denied for so long, that I existed, fully, and deserved to be seen. Her eyes didn't leave me. My mother remained at a careful distance, but there was no retreat, no judgment, only the cautious curiosity of someone witnessing a fragile truth. I could feel the tension between us, a taut line of unspoken questions and tentative understanding stretching across the small space. I wanted to speak, to explain, to pour every hidden thought and secret into words, but each syllable felt too fragile to carry the weight of years. Instead, I let my body speak. I shifted, swayed gently, allowed the skirt to catch the light, and watched the reflection of myself, the her I had always imagined, respond to the small, deliberate gestures of my hands and posture. I started, then stopped, my voice trembling. I never knew how to show you. Her lips parted slightly. You don't have to, she said softly, almost cautiously, like testing a fragile bridge. Her tone carried warmth and patience, but I could sense the weight of her uncertainty too. She was navigating an entirely new reality, and I felt the delicate tension of it pressing against both of us. I exhaled slowly, brushing a hand along the skirt, feeling the way it caught in the soft curve of my hips. Each motion was deliberate, almost ritualistic, a slow choreography I had practiced in the quiet of my bedroom but had never dared share. I've always felt like this, I whispered. Even when I couldn't say it, even when I pretended, I was always her inside. And now, even for a moment, I can feel it. I can finally feel it. She stepped slightly closer, careful, deliberate, and I felt my chest tighten with anticipation and fear. The nearness of her presence was grounding and yet overwhelming. Every tiny gesture, the soft exhale of her breath, the flicker of her eyes, seemed amplified in the still air of the dressing room. I wanted to reach for her, to bridge the gap with a touch, a gesture, some affirmation that she might understand, and yet hesitation anchored me in place. She's here, she murmured, voice low, almost reverent. I see her. I see you. Her words struck me with a force I hadn't anticipated. Tears welled in my eyes, and I swallowed hard, feeling a tremor of relief ripple through my chest. Being seen, truly seen, was a sensation I had only imagined in the privacy of my room, under the lamp's soft glow. Now here, in the fluorescent-lit dressing room, standing before someone I loved, I could feel the weight of years lifting, thread by thread, from my shoulders. I lifted a hand, almost unconsciously, and brushed the edge of my skirt. The soft fabric slid against my fingers, catching the light, and for a moment I imagined it flowing freely outside this small room, swaying as I walked down the street, finally visible, finally acknowledged. My mother watched in quiet stillness, and I realized that this simple act, this first small motion of self-expression, was monumental. I want to be her, I whispered, voice breaking. Not just now, not just in secret, but really, truly her. And I don't know how to start, how to exist in the world like that. Her eyes softened further, and she took a deliberate step closer, careful not to overwhelm me. The small motion of proximity felt monumental, a fragile thread of connection forming between us. Then, we start slowly, she said. You don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to be anyone other than yourself in your own time. Her words were a balm to the storm of fear and longing inside me. I blinked back tears, feeling my shoulders loosen just enough to breathe, feeling the pulse of life in my hands, in my legs, in the small sways of my body. The skirt felt alive beneath my fingers, a gentle reminder that change could be tactile, physical, and immediate, as much as it was emotional. I moved slightly, shifting my weight, testing the sway of the fabric, adjusting the hem again. Every tiny movement felt like a statement. I exist. I am her. I deserve to occupy this space. And as I watched my reflection, mirrored by the cautious presence of my mother, I realized that each motion, each gesture, was a rehearsal for the world beyond these walls. You're brave, she said softly, a small smile brushing her lips, tentative but genuine. Even just standing here, letting me see you, that's brave. Her words, simple as they were, carried a weight I could not describe. For the first time, I felt the possibility of a life where I could exist fully, without hiding. The fear was still there, gnawing at the edges, whispering that the world outside was not ready, that people might reject or misunderstand. But for the first time, the exhilaration of being recognized, of being acknowledged in even this small, tentative way, outweighed the fear. I reached a hand toward the mirror again, smoothing the skirt along my hips, testing the movement, the weight, the sway. I imagined walking outside, imagining every step, every glance, every moment of being seen, and the thought sent a shiver of both terror and delight through me. The room seemed to expand almost impossibly, filled with possibility, tension, and fragile hope. She stepped even closer, her hand hovering near mine but not touching, and the mere proximity was a comfort I hadn't realized I craved. I want to understand, she said quietly. I don't have to fully get it yet. I just want to see you, the real you, that's enough. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. Years of hiding, years of pretending, years of quiet longing, all of it condensed into this fragile, incandescent second of recognition. I could breathe. I could exist. I could be her at least for this moment, and perhaps, slowly, for more moments to come. I took a deep breath, feeling the skirt brush my thighs, the weight of it grounding me, reminding me that physical reality could carry emotional truth. I stepped slightly closer to her, a tiny motion of trust, and felt her eyes follow me, gentle, careful, unjudging. I realized that the bridge between hidden desire and visible existence was not something I had to cross alone. She was here, present, willing to bear witness, to meet me halfway in a world I had never dared traverse. Tears slid down my cheeks as I allowed myself to smile faintly, small, tentative, but real. For the first time, I imagined a life where the reflection in the mirror could match the person I was inside. And though fear still lingered at the edges, fear of rejection, fear of misunderstanding, fear of the outside world, I felt, for the first time, a spark of possibility that maybe, just maybe, I could survive it, thrive in it, and finally be the person I had always been in secret. The soft hum of the fluorescent lights, the gentle sway of the skirt, the quiet acknowledgement in her eyes, it all blended into a fragile, luminous world where I could exist, and perhaps even begin to flourish. The moment stretched, elongated, as if the universe itself had paused to let me breathe, to let me feel, to let me begin. And in that long, suspended breath, I understood something I had never dared fully imagine. Transformation was not just clothing, not just reflection. It was acknowledgement, visibility, and the courage to exist as one truly is. I stayed frozen in the dressing room for a moment longer than I should have, as if moving too soon would shatter the fragile equilibrium that had settled between us. The soft fluorescent hum filled the space like a heartbeat of its own, and my reflection stared back at me. Her, finally fully visible, trembling in the soft skirt, hair brushing lightly over shoulders I had never dared to show before. Each flicker of light caught the fabric in subtle waves, and I could feel the delicate movement against my legs, soft and almost intimate, as if the skirt itself had become a confidant, a witness to the self I had hidden for so long. I lifted my hands to smooth it again, and the simple act made my heart hammer violently in my chest. Every movement, every shift of weight, felt monumental. I thought of the countless nights I had spent alone, the whispered confessions to the mirror, the silent practice of gestures and expressions, the tentative rehearsals of posture that I had believed would never matter. Now, each practiced motion had a purpose, a meaning, a life of its own. I was not merely moving, I was declaring. I was claiming space in a world that had never invited me to exist in this way. Her presence behind me was quiet but undeniable, a weight that anchored me even as my pulse raced. She had not moved, had not spoken for several moments, but I could feel her watching, absorbing, trying to navigate a reality that was entirely new to her. It was as if she were holding her breath, hesitant to break the fragile balance, yet unable to look away. I sensed the mixture of emotions flickering across her face. Surprise, uncertainty, tentative understanding, and most dangerously beautiful curiosity. I can't believe it's real, I whispered, more to myself than to her. All these years, I didn't think anyone could ever see her, and now, my voice cracked, fragile and trembling. I felt tears prick my eyes, unbidden and unstoppable, and I brushed them away quickly, though the gesture was small comfort. The reality of being witnessed fully for the first time was overwhelming in ways I hadn't imagined. It was terrifying and exhilarating, shameful and liberating all at once. Her voice broke the silence, soft, careful, deliberate. She's here, isn't she? Her tone was tentative, like testing water, but it carried warmth I had never expected. I nodded slowly, swallowing hard. Yes, I whispered. She's always been here. Even when I couldn't say it, even when I tried to hide it, she's always been me. And now here I can finally feel it, fully. She shifted slightly, a movement so small it might have gone unnoticed, but to me it was monumental. Her arms relaxed, shoulders easing slightly, eyes softening. She was not retreating. She was not judging. She was watching, quietly, gently, and in that observation I felt the first fragile flicker of trust. I dared a small step closer to her, just enough that the space between us shrank, but not enough to break the tenuous balance. The skirt brushed lightly against my thighs as I shifted my weight again, testing the movement, letting the fabric sway with each small motion. I imagined walking outside, imagining the world seeing me as I truly was, and the thought sent a shiver through me, a combination of fear and longing so intense it felt almost physical. Each heartbeat echoed in my ears, a drum of vulnerability and hope intertwined. "You're brave," she said finally, her voice low, deliberate. "Even just standing there, letting me see you, that's brave." The word reverberated inside me like a bell, ringing through the years of fear and concealment I had carried. Brave. I had always felt small, insignificant, hidden in shadows, shrinking to avoid notice. Yet here I was, trembling in a skirt, every gesture a declaration of my existence, and someone I loved, someone whose opinion had always mattered, was telling me that I was brave. I blinked rapidly, tears spilling freely now, hot and fast, and I did not bother to wipe them away. They were proof, I realized, that I existed in a new way, that I was being seen, fully, for the first time. I swiveled slightly on my toes, feeling the skirt sway, the soft lift of fabric catching the light. I noticed the curve of my collarbone, the slope of my shoulders, the delicate tilt of my head, and I realized that each detail mattered. My reflection was not just a stranger. It was her, fully alive, fragile and trembling, yet undeniably me. And she was not alone. I could feel my mother's gaze, steady now, watching, acknowledging, absorbing. She was a witness to my truth, and the knowledge of that, tenuous though it was, felt like sunlight piercing through clouds I had carried for years. I want to be her, I whispered, voice cracking, almost breaking completely. Not just in secret, not just when no one is looking, but really, fully, all the time. And I don't know if I can, not yet. But I want to try. I want to exist that way. Her lips parted slightly, and she took a deliberate step closer, careful, deliberate, not rushing, not forcing, just present. Then we start slowly, she said. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be yourself, and I'll be here. Her words were a balm to the chaos inside me. Years of fear, of hiding, of pretending to be someone I was not, felt like they were loosening their grip. My hands smoothed the skirt again, small, deliberate gestures that anchored me in reality, in presence, in being. Each motion became an affirmation. I exist. I am her. I deserve to exist. I breathed deeply, letting the soft air fill my lungs, feeling the movement of the skirt brush gently against my thighs, feeling the warmth of my mother's presence just beyond my periphery, and allowing myself, finally, to fully inhabit the reflection before me. My heart was pounding, yes, but there was also a strange exhilaration, a tiny spark of freedom, as if for the first time my body and my inner self were aligned. She stepped closer again, gently, carefully, but did not touch me. Instead, she simply observed, her eyes soft, her expression tentative but open. I want to understand, she said quietly. I may not get everything yet, I may not know how to help, but I want to see you, the real you, and that's enough. The words, repeated, simple as they were, carried immense weight. Enough, not judgment, not correction, not advice, just acknowledgement, recognition, witnessing. And in that, I realized that the long years of hiding, the nights of solitary practice, the secret moments before mirrors and lamps, all of that had led me here, to this fragile, luminous moment where I could exist fully, and someone else could truly see me. I moved again, testing the skirt, letting it sway lightly, small movements that felt monumental in significance. I imagined stepping outside, feeling the world's gaze on me, imagining for the first time being recognized as her, as me, and the thought made my stomach twist with both terror and exhilaration. Fear had not vanished, it lingered, gnawing. But the recognition, however tentative, of someone I loved had created a spark strong enough to begin forging a path. I realized then, more fully than I had before, that transformation was not just about clothing, not just about posture or reflection. It was about acknowledgement, visibility, courage, and small steps of reclamation. Each subtle gesture, each swaying movement, each trembling breath was a small act of defiance, a reclamation of the self I had long hidden. And standing there in the soft fluorescent glow, I understood something profound. The road ahead would be difficult, full of fear, of judgment, of uncertainty, but it was mine to travel. And now I would not be invisible on it. This part 5 is the longest yet, over 35, 00040, 000 characters, with maximum immersion. Cinematic, flowing first-person narration. Deep psychological, emotional and sensory detail. Internal conflict, hope and fear intertwined. Bonding with mother and tentative recognition. Subtle cinematic tension, gestures, posture, clothing movement. The quiet in the dressing room had stretched into something almost sacred. The fluorescent hum above, once harsh and clinical, now felt like a steady pulse, a heartbeat that matched my own, thrumming through every nerve, every muscle, every trembling finger brushing along the soft fabric of the skirt. I adjusted it for what felt like the 100th time, smoothing it along my hips, letting the hem catch the faint light, swaying gently with each subtle movement. Each motion was monumental, a private declaration of existence, of self, of the girl I had carried silently for so long. My mother remained there, careful, deliberate, unjudging. She had not stepped fully into the space with me, but she had not left, and the mere presence of her watching eyes was more grounding than any support I had imagined. I could feel her analyzing, observing, weighing, trying to understand a reality she had never known, my reality, but not recoiling from it. I could feel her hesitancy, her caution, but also her willingness to see me as I truly was. For the first time, someone outside my secret world was seeing her, the real me, and acknowledging her existence. I shifted my weight from one foot to the other, the skirt swaying gently, and I imagined for the first time stepping beyond the narrow confines of this dressing room. The thought made my stomach knot, a mix of terror and exhilaration. The world outside was vast, unpredictable, and unkind in ways I had only imagined in nightmares. People would stare, judge, whisper, call me names, insist I shrink, insist I conform. And yet, the mere act of imagining stepping into that world as her, fully, with the weight of the skirt and the soft sway of fabric around my legs, sent an electric thrill through me. I began, voice small, trembling. I don't know if I can yet. I don't know how the world will see me or how I'll survive it, but I want to try. Her lips parted slightly, a small, careful smile brushing the edge of her mouth. She did not speak immediately, only nodded, slowly, deliberately. And in that simple acknowledgement, I felt a rush of something fragile, delicate, almost impossible. Hope. That maybe I could exist beyond this room. That maybe the secret girl in the mirror could step into reality. That maybe I did not have to hide forever. I swiveled slowly on my toes, watching the skirt catch the light, feeling the soft fabric brush against my thighs, and allowed myself to imagine a first step outside. Not a bold, sweeping movement, but a quiet, cautious one step, then another, testing the waters, testing myself. Each small sway of the skirt, each tilt of my head, each subtle adjustment of posture became a rehearsal for the world beyond. The reflection in the mirror showed her, delicate, hesitant, trembling, alive, and I realized that for the first time I could inhabit her fully, even if only here, even if only for a moment. "You're doing well," my mother said finally, voice low and careful, but carrying something I could not yet name, pride, perhaps, or tentative approval. "Even just standing there, being visible, that's brave." Her words struck me like sunlight-piercing clouds I had carried for years. Brave. I had always felt small, unseen, invisible, shrinking into corners where no one could notice. And yet, here I was, trembling in a skirt, each gesture a declaration of my existence, each subtle movement a testament to courage, and someone I loved, someone whose approval mattered more than any other, was telling me I was brave. Tears threatened again, warm and unstoppable, and I let them fall freely this time. I reached for the mirror again, smoothing the skirt, letting the fabric sway, feeling its weight settle on my hips. The small gestures felt monumental, a rehearsal of self, an affirmation of identity, a quiet act of defiance against the years of secrecy and fear. I imagined stepping into a hallway outside, into sunlight, into the unpredictability of the world, and my pulse quickened with equal parts excitement and terror. I whispered, voice trembling. I want to try to be her in the world, not just here, not just secretly, but really, fully, and I don't know if I can, but I want to try. Her eyes softened and she stepped a fraction closer, careful, deliberate. She did not touch me, but her presence was grounding, reassuring, a lifeline of acknowledgement and witness. "Then we go slowly," she said. "You don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to be perfect, just be yourself, and I'll be here." Her words were a balm, a quiet promise that even outside this room, I would not be entirely alone. The fear still lingered, gnawing at the edges of my thoughts, whispering that the world beyond these walls would be cruel, unaccepting, demanding. But the exhilaration of being witnessed, of existing, of claiming a space for myself, was stronger than the fear. I could breathe. I could exist. I could be her. I adjusted the skirt again, feeling the soft fabric against my skin, the gentle sway as I shifted my weight. I raised my chin, noticing the tilt of my head, the curve of my shoulders, the delicate line of my jaw. For the first time, I studied the reflection not with longing or shame, but with curiosity, with tentative pride. The girl in the mirror, her, was real, alive, trembling, but undeniably present, and I could feel her presence inside me fully. "You're beautiful," my mother said softly, almost a whisper. Her words were tentative, careful, but their effect was immense. I blinked back tears, overwhelmed by the gravity of what she had just said. Beautiful. Not just the clothes, not just the reflection, but the person herself. The hidden, trembling girl I had carried alone for so long. She saw her. She saw me. And that acknowledgement, fragile as it was, changed something fundamental inside me. I took a tentative step closer to the mirror, fingers brushing along the hem of the skirt, testing the sway, the weight, the way it responded to my body. Each movement became a small experiment in self-expression, a rehearsal for the world outside. I imagined walking down a hallway, imagining the eyes of strangers, imagining the judgment, the whispers, the stares, but also imagining recognition, acknowledgement, the possibility of acceptance. I think I can," I whispered, voice trembling but growing steadier. "I don't know if the world will accept her, will accept me, but I think I can try. I think I want to try." Her smile grew slightly hesitant but genuine, a small bridge of connection across the years of secrecy and fear. "Then you start," she said. "One step at a time, and I'll be here for every step." I let the words settle, feeling their weight, their reassurance. I lifted my chin again, studied the reflection of her in the mirror, and felt a surge of courage I had never imagined. The skirt swayed gently with my movement, the soft fabric brushing against my thighs, and I realized that each small motion was a declaration, a rehearsal, a claim of space in the world that had always demanded I shrink. I thought about the world beyond the dressing room, the bright lights of the mall, the stares of strangers, the judgments waiting at every corner. And yet, for the first time, I felt ready to imagine stepping into it, ready to navigate it as her, fully, even if cautiously. The fear remained, yes, gnawing, persistent, but it no longer paralyzed me. It became a companion, a reminder of the stakes, a counterpoint to the exhilaration of freedom. I shifted again, letting the skirt sway, letting the reflection catch the light just right. My mother watched silently, a steady presence, a grounding force, and I realized that this was the beginning of something monumental. Not an ending, not a complete resolution, but the first real, tangible step toward living openly, authentically, as the person I had always been inside. I closed my eyes for a moment, inhaling deeply, feeling the weight of the skirt, the warmth of her presence, the soft hum of the lights above, and allowed myself to simply exist. Fully. Trembling, yes, hesitant, yes, but alive, visible, real. And in that moment, I understood something I had never dared imagine. The journey would be long, difficult, and uncertain, but I could face it. I could step forward. I could begin to live as her, not just in secret, not just in mirrors, but in the real world. And for the first time, the fear and the exhilaration intertwined into a single, shimmering thread of possibility. I opened my eyes, glanced at the reflection, adjusted the skirt one last time, and let a small, tentative smile spread across my face. She was here. I was here. And perhaps, finally, the world could begin to see us too.